You ever notice how in any argument people tend to take sides, like there's always just two options, one right, one wrong? Think about debates like Marvel versus DC, or whether you should be vegetarian versus non-vegetarian, or even how people view good versus bad in general. It's like people are always so quick to pick one side, as if it's impossible to see things from both angles. It's much rarer to find someone who stands in the middle, seeing both the good and the bad in each argument. And it's not that standing in the middle is impossible. Some people do it, but they're definitely fewer in number compared to those who pick a clear side. The thing is, the answer to almost every complex question is actually found in that middle, in the gray area. It's not all black or white, but shades of gray. Does that mean one side is always right and the other is completely wrong? No, absolutely not. There's good and bad in every perspective. It just depends on what you choose to focus on. Smart and successful people know this, and that's why they don't just follow the crowd blindly. You've got to be open-minded to see the positives and negatives in everything. Take World War II, for instance. We often think of it as a battle between good and evil, where the Allies were the good guys and the Axis powers were the bad guys. But if you look closer, the picture becomes more complicated. The Allies, who fought against the atrocities of Nazi Germany, weren't completely innocent themselves. For example, the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing hundreds of thousands of civilians. And the Soviet Union, although instrumental in defeating Hitler, committed severe human rights violations under Stalin. Does that make the Allies entirely wrong? No, they were fighting for a just cause, but they made morally questionable decisions along the way. On the other hand, while Nazi Germany's actions are universally condemned, there were everyday German soldiers and citizens who were not evil themselves, yet were caught up in the war. This shows that in almost every historical event, there are shades of gray. When people argue about something like vegetarianism versus non-vegetarianism, it's easy to find yourself pulled to one side based on how you feel or what you've been taught. Vegetarians often argue that their lifestyle is more ethical and environmentally sustainable, which is true to an extent. On the other hand, people who eat meat might argue that animal proteins are essential for building muscle and staying healthy, which can also be true depending on the person. The key is realizing that both sides have valid points. You can be a vegetarian and get all the nutrients you need, but a balanced diet that includes meat can also be sustainable and healthy if done right. The answer isn't in saying one side is entirely right. It's in finding a middle path that acknowledges the benefits and downsides of both approaches. Look at something as simple as Marvel versus DC. Fans of Marvel praise the lightheartedness, humor, and character development in movies like The Avengers or Guardians of the Galaxy. On the flip side, DC fans appreciate the darker tone and deeper storytelling found in movies like The Dark Knight or Joker. The thing is, both approaches offer something unique, and neither is universally better than the other. Some people like a bit of fun and action, while others enjoy a more serious, thought-provoking narrative. If you stand in the middle, you can enjoy both for what they are, instead of locking yourself into one category. So why is it so hard for people to stand in the middle? First, it's because there's a lot of social pressure to choose sides. People want to belong to a group, and taking a firm stance gives them that feeling of identity and belonging. It's easier to say, I'm a Marvel fan or I'm a vegetarian, because it's a clear label that others can recognize. Standing in the middle often means facing criticism from both sides, which is uncomfortable. Nobody wants to be called indecisive or wishy-washy. Another reason is that our brains are wired for cognitive bias. We like to confirm our existing beliefs and ignore information that challenges them. So, if you're a meat eater, you're likely to seek out articles and videos that praise the health benefits of meat while ignoring the ethical arguments. And if you're a vegetarian, you might do the opposite, only focusing on content that supports your decision. This kind of thinking makes it harder to see the gray area where both sides have merit. Standing in the middle also requires open-mindedness and a willingness to admit that you don't have all the answers. It means you're willing to listen to both sides, consider the evidence, and make a decision that isn't based purely on emotions or social pressure. This kind of balanced thinking is rare but crucial. If you look at the most successful and influential people in history, you'll often find that they avoid extreme positions. They understand that life is complex and that black and white thinking limits creativity, progress, and problem solving. For example, in business, leaders like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk didn't cling to the traditional ways of doing things, nor did they abandon all conventions. They borrowed from both sides, using traditional business practices while incorporating innovative, sometimes radical ideas. Jobs blended technology with artistry, creating products that were both functional and beautiful. Musk, on the other hand, combined a traditional business model with futuristic goals, such as colonizing Mars, to create one of the most valuable companies in the world, Tesla. Successful people also understand the importance of empathy, of seeing the world from different perspectives. In negotiations, the most effective leaders are those who can see both sides of an argument and work toward a compromise that benefits everyone. Ultimately, you have to learn how to balance your heart and your head. Emotions can cloud your judgment, especially in arguments that deal with personal or ethical issues. For example, when someone feels strongly about something like environmentalism, their emotions might lead them to believe that any non-vegetarian is harming the planet. But rational thinking might show that some sustainable farming practices can actually benefit the environment. By thinking with both your heart and your head, you'll make better, more informed decisions. At the end of the day, the middle ground is where wisdom is found. It's not about being indecisive. It's about understanding that life is complex, and rarely are things purely good or purely bad. When you take the time to understand both sides of an argument, you're able to see the bigger picture. The gray area might seem like the hardest place to stand, but it's also where the real truth lies. So the next time you find yourself in a debate, don't be so quick to pick a side. Instead, take a step back, think about both perspectives, and embrace the gray. You'll find that the most valuable insights are often hiding in that middle ground.